benefits of citizenship include identity, a sense of belonging, and culture. These, to some, rank higher than economic and civic rights. On our show today, we take on citizenship by registration. My name is Noella Seidu, and this is Law Express. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break.
Kofi Owusu-Ampiao is a private legal practitioner who enjoys movies, reading, and soccer in his spare time. As a private legal practitioner who spends his leisure time reading, playing with his children, and engaging in football. Noella Seidu. She's a private legal practitioner and a consistent member of our 3-lawyer panel on the show every week. She also doubles as the host of the show. She likes to play tennis and read.
Citizenship is a matter of law. When we talk about Ghanaian citizenship, we have to trace it through our laws. So the fundamental question, the fundamental issue starts from the 1992 Constitution, and then we look at the other laws, the regulations, and then the Citizenship Act, and so on and so forth. But there are two broad categories. So we have what in Latin we call the jus sanguinis, that's citizenship by birth, citizenship through blood relations, and then citizenship by other means, as jus soli. So with that, there are so many other categories in that bracket. We have naturalization, we have registration, we have foundling, and all that. I think today's discussion, we can look at citizenship by registration.
That is actually the topic.
Yes. So,
but now that you've brought in all these things about foundlings and everything, probably we could just explain what that is. And basically, a child who is 7 years, or not more than 7 years, found in Ghana, whose parents are not known, is presumed to be a citizen of Ghana by birth.
Yes.
So that's essentially what the foundling means, which is the big English council has put on the show.
Yes.
The first thing that somebody might wonder is, why should I even bother about citizenship? What's the advantage, what's the benefit of identifying as a citizen of any other country and taking steps to acquire that citizenship, going through a lot of hoops, having that, or to have that conferred upon you?
There are many perks to being a citizen of
I
a
like how you
country.
put it, perks.
Yes. And in this particular instance, we are talking about Ghana. So for instance, if you're a non-citizen, you cannot vote.
Yeah.
You need to be a citizen of 18 years and above to be able to vote. So acquiring the citizenship of Ghana will allow you to vote. Now, also having the citizenship of Ghana will give you unrestricted access to leave the country and come in at any time.
So
Because
right of re-entry.
Yes, right of re-entry, very good. So if you are a non-citizen and you leave the shores of Ghana and the visa or whatever permit you have seizes, then that is all. You cannot come back until you reapply.
Even to add to that, if your visa is for even 5 years and you have a single entry, once you've entered and you've left,
That's it.
that's it. So the visa application fees are waived when you hold a Ghanaian passport by operation of, or by virtue of your citizenship, which gives you right to travel all around the world, because without a passport you can't go to other countries.
Yes, yes. So with that, then it means that you have the capacity to do all the things that a citizen is allowed to do. And one critical thing that we do not have to lose sight of is the fact that you have the social benefit of having that sense of belonging, that you belong to this particular group of people or this particular part of the earth.
That's actually very important, and although it is not a tangible in the way that you can see it, it's really major to our existence as humans, in that when there's a World Cup, for instance, the pride that comes with being a part of a team.
Yes.
When the Olympics are ongoing, the pride would be in cheering for a side.
Yes.
And even when you travel and you go to other countries, especially where they have a different pigmentation in terms of skin, and you are obviously dark in a predominantly white country. The first question they ask you, so where did you come from? So assuming if you don't have a country,
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
stateless.
Exactly.
And that will be a whole conversation.
And another perk of being a citizen in Ghana is when it comes to property ownership. By the Constitution and other laws relating to land in Ghana, if you are not a citizen of Ghana, the maximum period you can hold a landed property is 50 years. But when you acquire the citizenship of Ghana, it now exceeds that limit, at the very least up until 99 years. So acquiring the citizenship of Ghana when it comes to property ownership is very, very important. That's also notwithstanding, by the nature of our constitution, you need to even be a citizen to be able to enforce other provisions outside the human rights provisions. So acquiring the citizenship of Ghana will allow you to, will open access to all the laws of Ghana to allow you, who has now registered or naturalized as a citizen, to be able to now have the constitution available to you.
So you're looking at a broader range of justice,
Yes.
Rich.
Yeah, so we can even still expand on the economic benefits. For instance, let's say there are certain areas that are reserved for Ghanaians. If you're a citizen, then you get the opportunity to come
retail,
under
for instance.
the various laws that give citizens the right to enter into certain aspects of the Ghanaian economy, which hitherto you might not have had access to. You can also, like you said, you can also, if you can vote, you can even run for office as well, and also be able to take critical decisions.
And to hold certain public roles.
Yes.
You can't be an IGP, for instance, if you're not Ghanaian.
Yes.
So there are some positions that are reserved for just citizens.
In the public service.
You can't be president of Ghana if you're not a Ghanaian.
Exactly.
So these are some of the benefits. There's also the opportunity to give your children, who hitherto probably are non-Ghanaian, that ease of becoming Ghanaian based on your citizenship.
Yes.
So being a citizen of Ghana can easily help your kids to attain the status, your spouse to attain the status. Then
and all the rights that flow from there, the rights and the privileges and the courtesies that flow from there.
let's not lose sight of the ease in registration of companies.
Yes, that's true.
There is a requirement of a stated capital for any company limited by liability, especially. So non-Ghanaians will pay more in taxes compared to Ghanaians. So if you're a Ghanaian, it lowers the burden on your pockets when you decide to start an economic process. Then you have no risk of losing your immigration status. You're a Ghanaian, nobody is going to throw you out.
Nobody's going to come and ask you, have you renewed your resident or work permit?
Yes.
You don't need to go looking for a work permit before you can go seeking for a job.
Exactly.
Or starting anything, because the documentation required if you are not a citizen is different from what will be required if you are a citizen. So a lot more things are easily accessible to you.
Let's talk about registration. You want to be a citizen by registration as opposed to naturalization. Why would you choose the route of registration? Who qualifies to choose a right of registration?
Okay, so looking at Ghana, we've already said that you can acquire citizenship by birth, by naturalization, or by registration. By birth appears to be an automatic route. Naturalization
appears, I like that.
Naturalization and registration is by the law. So let's look at the differences between naturalization and registration here. If you take a look at our Constitution and the Citizenship Act read together, it appears that registration is meant for persons who are married to Ghanaians. So if you're a foreigner and then you come into the country, you get married to a Ghanaian, and then you want to acquire the citizenship, registration appears to be the better route for you than naturalization. Why am I saying so? Naturalization is open to all, but also comes with certain strict requirements. For instance, there are about 9 steps that you'd have to go through in order to be qualified to be naturalized. But when it comes to registration, it talks about you marrying a Ghanaian and also your child being able to be eligible for registration after you've acquired your citizenship through registration or naturalization. So it appears naturalization has stranger steps than registration in this regard. So it appears to be a safer route, particularly when you are married to a Ghanaian.
I totally agree, but I think that to expand it further, it's not just the people who have spouses who are Ghanaian, it's also for children whose parents are now Ghanaian or are Ghanaian. For instance, if you go to have your child in the US or in another country that probably agrees to confer citizenship at birth automatically, your child would have that nationality as a primary nationality at that point, because that's the first nationality they pick up. That's what will be on the birth cert if it's so written. Now, the person's parents still may be Ghanaians, and if over time you want to activate your Ghanaian citizenship, then they can come home and then register to be Ghanaians as well, just like how a spouse would. But we need to further unpack it. I think it's
So
still
like
a bit.
as you were saying, it's also cheaper with registration than with naturalization. And some of the requirements are not as stringent as with naturalization. For instance, one of the requirements for naturalization, you need 7 years continuous stay. But with registration, it's just 5 years and even less, depending on how the minister decides
I think
to.
with registration,
to
there's
exercise
actually no number of years.
Yeah.
Looking at
Well,
It could just be 1 week.
yeah,
Yes, it could be.
the minister decides to exercise discretion. The key thing is that if you are going to use your marriage to register, it has to be shown that indeed you didn't contract the marriage just for the purpose of acquiring the citizenship. So, if it is indeed shown that it's a genuine marriage, and as a course, in the course of it, now you want to go further and attain the citizenship of your spouse, then why not?
You must be a citizen of another country. You must be of age of majority, such that, I mean, if you are going through the marriage route, right? You can be a child, a minor married to somebody and seeking that. Because the marriage itself would not be a valid one. Then we are looking at so you're a citizen of age and capacity, and you are from an approved country, which suggests that there may be some countries that we may decide not to register their citizens as Ghanaians. And so, but essentially you need the approval of the president once again, and you need to satisfy the minister that you qualify. So quickly, can we go over what you need to prove to qualify?
So you have to be conferred with citizenship, and one critical thing is that at the time of conferment, you have to be there. It cannot be done in absentia. So if you meet all the criteria and they fix a date and you don't show up, you are not going to get it.
It means that in order to qualify to be registered as a citizen, you ought to have been a foreigner, you ought to have been married to a Ghanaian,
or a child
of a Ghanaian who wants to be registered, which means that if the parent of the child has, for instance, acquired a citizenship by naturalization or registration, he can subsequently apply for that child to also be registered as a citizen. But then again, the law now says that in order to qualify, you have to be someone coming from an approved country. So for instance, Taiwan, for instance, is not recognized by a lot of countries, I believe including Ghana to be a country. So in that regard, being an approved country here might be difficult from someone coming from Taiwan to be recognized because of this whole thing of China. That is just one thing. Now, the law too says that you have to be of capacity and age.
Full capacity.
Full capacity and age. Full capacity means that you'd have to have the means to actually appreciate the nature of the step you are taking. Because once again, there are certain countries that if you acquire the citizenship of another country, even though you might be born there, you lose that citizenship. So you really need to appreciate what you are doing before you apply to be registered as a citizen. Now, the law further says that you have to be of good character. That one is a bit quite open and maybe subject to the reasonable man once again.
Standard, yeah.
What then is a good character?
It's an objective test.
It's an objective test.
It's an objective test.
I
so
think
you
it
have
will
to-
fall into commission of crimes and all of that.
Exactly. So you have to aggregate a lot of things to make a determination whether, in fact, this is a person of questionable character.
Are
or
you?
not.
Do you have good morals? Do you have any criminal records? Are you nice to your neighbors? Do you support society? Because good character is like a whole lot. It's a whole gamut of things, right? And it's subjective from person to person. But ultimately, the minister is the one who ought to be satisfied.
Yes.
If the minister's standard or benchmark is up here, then you have to jump that. If it's low down here, then perhaps it's easier for you. I think you must be ordinarily resident in Ghana.
Yes.
And you should have been here throughout the period of 5 years or a shorter period.
Yes.
So that's why I was like,
Yes.
the 5 years, why do we have that?
Well, yeah. So it is just to show that indeed you are interested in actually being
And you're not just
Ghanaian and
in to
permanent-
marry
yes,
and then out the
just
following week.
come in, acquire the citizenship and use it to do something else somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's just part of the objective criteria to determine that indeed you don't just want it just for the sake of it, but you want it because you really want to be
Part
part of us.
I also think that opportunity is left for the minister to exercise his discretion in terms of dispensing with the 5-year residential requirements.
Yes.
On the basis that you can marry a Ghanaian, okay, and by operation of what you do, maybe you are an offshore engineer, and the only reason you don't live here is because of your job, and you're in this high seas. It's not like you've chosen another country over Ghana. Your work is ordinarily there. You're a naval officer. You are on the high seas, but for every opportunity you get to be on leave, you stay in Ghana. I think that's where some of these loopholes are. Or you work for an international agency, but you want Ghana to be your home country.
Yes, yes.
So it gives some of these
So the law actually gives the minister the leeway and
discretion.
the discretion to be able to waive some of these requirements.
Great. Before we continue the conversation, we'll go for a quick break. Okay. Stay tuned. This is Law Express.
Another
Requirement.
interesting requirement is that you must also understand or speak at least one indigenous language. It's a very interesting requirement because it also shows that you have assimilated or have taken steps to actually be part and parcel of Ghanaian society, Ghanaian community.
Yep.
And language is just one of the quickest ways for you to get to appreciate our culture. So it's a very important requirement.
It's very interesting. Whereas with the requirements for naturalization, it expressly states that you should have exhibited signs of assimilation or show that you really intend to assimilate, and that ties into the dialect, having at least one dialect. Here, for registration, it's not a precondition assimilation.
Yes.
Reason being that the ultimate evidence of assimilation is that you've married a Ghanaian.
Yes.
The ultimate evidence is that your parent is Ghanaian. So I think that's where the law now dispenses with that, because you already probably have ticked that box. What about the marriage preconditions?
Yes. So for a foreigner who marries a Ghanaian and subsequently registers to be a Ghanaian, there are certain other things that goes into the law that has to be brought to their attention. So, for instance, if you are married to a Ghanaian as a foreigner, and the person dies, but you had failed to register as a Ghanaian
During his lifetime.
during his lifetime or
Yeah.
her lifetime,
Yeah.
the law gives you the leeway to still apply under the assumption as if the person is still alive at the time you are applying.
Of course, you indicate it in the boxes, but then you still have that right surviving the
Yes.
demise of your spouse.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is like an opportunity for widows and widowers.
Yes, like
Yes.
posthumous citizenship
Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
or posthumous registration
yes.
through the
Yeah.
person.
And
Yes.
and it's also allows you to still hold on to your citizenship if, let's say, you did the registration, and then maybe the marriage was subsequently dissolved.
Okay.
But once you have the citizenship, the law will allow you to continue to have the citizenship.
Okay, and then
So the
also,
country doesn't divorce you as well.
No.
no, also for a child who also acquired the citizenship through registration through a parent, the child still continues to hold on to the citizenship unless the child reaches the age of majority and renounces the citizenship of Ghana, which means that death will not stop you from registering for citizenship once your spouse dies. It also means that death will not do away with your citizenship. It also means that once you get divorced, your citizenship still remains
Intact.
because you acquired it at the time you were married. It is only when you decide to renounce it yourself that you will do away with it, because that one is your voluntary wish.
We have established that when it comes to registration, the main routes marriage
Yes.
and parentage.
Yes.
Great. But the law requires that for a man to register as a citizen, you must, by necessity, be ordinarily resident, regardless of the part that talks about the discretion of the minister. I don't know why it's only bound to men and not women. I don't know why, it's dispensed when it comes to women, but
In the
There's
face of
a-
Article 17, I also don't know.
yeah, because everybody in the Constitution is superior, so why should there be exceptions? And when it's a man, he must, is it because of the, should I say, society's opinion or our cultural expectations
And
that a woman will follow her husband? So where the husband is now following the wife, there must be some suspicion around it. I don't kind of
Yes,
get
and
that.
even if you look at, if you trace our law even back to the common law we inherited from the British, women were considered as property of men.
Shuttles.
You
Right.
men like to say this so much that it's like a broken record. Every opportunity a male lawyer has,
So-
he has to remind women that they were regarded as chattel and owned by men and couldn't
I
vote.
mean, the law was so bad such that even if a woman went through sexual harassment, it's a husband that was compensated.
Yes.
So it's like, even you look at our historical antecedents to where we are now, it's like men have been placed in a role in a society that they are responsible for the family, the upkeep of the wife and the children.
Everything, yeah.
They have to go and get the food and bring back. So I think maybe that was the understanding or spirit behind the law, such that the man will always be present
Yes.
to
At
provide
any
for the
point
wife
in
and
time,
children.
Yes. And I think it was also to curtail any abuse whereby some people will probably decide to just use the women, acquire the citizenship, and then just...
Do people do that?
Well, yeah, of course, because if they sit down and then
In
analyze...
Ghana?
Yeah, sit down and analyze and realize that, look, I want to set up businesses. There are people who are coming into town and they are coming with the idea that they've identified certain areas where they can go into business and make a lot
exploit,
of
yeah.
money. But then they realize that the only drawback is the fact that since they are not citizens, they might not be able to fully harness those potentials.
Yes, and
So the quickest route is
Marriage
is
fraud.
get
Yes,
a marriage
and
and then
even
quickly
to buttress him,
get it through.
some of these galamsey cases, there are instances where some of these Chinese are accused of entering into false marriages with Ghanaians with the hope that they could also engage in small-scale mining,
Yes.
since it is not open to foreigners.
Exactly.
You have
So-
even gone too far. Retail in our markets.
Yes.
Non-Ghanaians are not allowed to come and engage in hawking, retailing, and selling around the market.
Yeah.
But you find all manner of people there And when you trace, you realize that they're registered
Mm-hmm.
by virtue of marriage.
Yeah.
But that is why the drawback is there in the law,
Mm-hmm.
where parts of it suggest that, look, if the officer in charge has suspicion that the only reason you are registering is, the only reason you have the opportunity to register is marriage, and that was the main purpose for which you contracted a marriage,
Yeah.
you are required to prove further that your marriage is indeed in good faith. And as to that proof, I don't know, would they expect you to have a child? Because some people can play the game for long.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
having a child, considering the processes to having that child, are all perks of office, like
Mhm.
he said.
Yeah.
I mean, if the guy is a liar, he can still make babies and still be a liar.
Yeah.
So it's just hard to tell,
Mm-hmm.
because probably your game is a 10-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yes,
doesn't
yes,
stop
yes,
you
yes,
from
yes.
having kids to support your citizenship.
Mhm.
And then after that, you divorce the woman,
Mhm.
and then probably just abandon the
Yeah.
kids.
So it's in this case, it's like you are looking at intent, but it's not easy to just determine intent. You
Because
have
even
to
the devil
look at
cannot tell us.
all the surrounding circumstances, because you can't just look at someone or listen to someone and be able to tell what is going on through their minds. So it's like you said, it's a very interesting part, and it's quite delicate.
Great.
Yeah.
So let's look at registration in practice before we come to the steps. If you are registering by virtue of a marriage, the law requires that whoever you are riding on to register must consent.
Yes.
So the person has to support your application with documents and letters and all of that. Literally co-sign the registration
Yeah.
process. Now, in the case of minors, they on their own can't even kickstart the process. The parent that they are, by virtue of whom they are using for this process,
Yeah.
or by virtue of whom they qualify, that parent has to apply for the citizenship
Yes.
for them. And without that parent's action or proactivity, they cannot become registered as
Yeah.
citizens of Ghana.
Yeah.
Before we continue to the actual steps or the practicality of the registration process, let's take a listen. We sampled people's opinion on the streets
Okay.
to see what they...
One can become a citizen of any country through various processes such as naturalization, birth, adoption, and marriage. So with the birth, anyone whose grandparents are from any other country, let's say Ghana, for example, my grandparents are Ghanaians, so I am automatically a Ghanaian.
One can become a citizen of a country through international resolutions like the Vienna Conventions, that is respecting the international law, and of course the constitution of that particular country. For example, in Ghana, according to the constitution, when somebody is birthed in Ghana here, automatically becomes a Ghanaian. And also one can also become a citizen as a result of globalization. That is, you are an African, you travel to Jamaica, looking at the cultural, the multicultural sphere or angle, you fit with them, and they may not even know where you are coming from. Automatically, you are a citizen of that country.
And a citizen becomes a citizen through, for example, adoption. So if you've been adopted by someone from USA, definitely you sign some legal documents that will automatically mean that you are the person's child. So if the person is from USA and the person came to adopt you from Ghana, automatically you become a citizen of USA because of the legal papers that the person signed.
Well, those are some very interesting comments, and I think one of the comments that was quite interesting to me was someone saying that if you are born in Ghana, you automatically become a citizen. That is not correct. If you are born in Ghana to non-citizens, you are not going to become a citizen. You would have to go through the legal process, and then if
When
you
you
meet,
attain,
yes,
you know,
majority,
majority
and
age.
if you meet all the criteria, then you can become a citizen. Our law doesn't grant automatic citizenship simply because you were born on the soil. If you are born here and one of your parents or grandparents is a Ghanaian, yes, then you become a citizen. But if that's not the case...
Even at that year, it's optional, right?
Mhm.
You can choose to take the other parent's
Yes,
nationality.
yes. But if that's not the case, you cannot be a citizen.
Yeah.
Yes. One other interesting view I heard was that in Ghana, you could acquire citizenship through conventions like the Vienna Convention and other international conventions. Well, in my humble view, that is not the case because, as we've said from day one, the citizenship depends on jus sanguinis, which is blood, or jus soli, which is territory. Blood, we can trace it through birth. That is one. When it comes to jus soli, it means the laws of the territory of the country, or the laws of the territory you find yourself provides various means or routes by which you can acquire the citizenship.
And
In
one
Ghana,
of which is the registration. With
it
the
is through
person.
registration we are discussing, and the other one is through naturalization.
Yes.
So these Vienna conventions, at the very least, will be a guide if they relate to citizenship.
Maybe he's sort of connecting it to foundlings, perhaps.
Maybe, maybe,
Because,
maybe.
Yeah.
yeah.
It will be a guide as to how signatory countries would couch or write their laws with regards to citizenship, but cannot be automatically presumed that it has to find itself in the laws adopted by that nation before you can say that.
Listen, in simple terms, the international community cannot dictate to Ghanaians as to
Yes.
how they regulate their citizenship matters.
Mhm.
That's something that is a preserve of your country, and you put together legislation
Mhm.
to regulate
Yes,
that
yes.
whole
It is
situation.
only within the purview of the state
Yes.
to determine how they grant citizenship or how they revoke citizenship.
And if you
And-
go as far back as even World War II times,
Mhm.
for someone like Hitler, when he was a leader of Germany,
Mhm.
it was about pure blonde,
Blue
tall Germans,
eyes.
blue eyes, who would be the true blood, the Aryan race.
Mhm.
Yes.
And that is the law of the territory as at the
Mhm,
time he
mhm,
wanted it.
mhm,
And he actually bred children
mhm.
to look like that in factories.
Mhm.
So it's the territory you find yourself and the laws they decide to enact or
Mhm.
even adopt if it's international.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we've covered most of it, but unless we want to take up the adoption comment. It's interesting that although we're talking about nationality in Ghana or citizenship of Ghana, she was already talking about being adopted into the United
Well,
States.
of course.
Yes.
She
yada,
might
yada.
have plans of probably...
But I don't think she's a minor. She can't be adopted at that, at
Yes.
that age. But it's interesting, yes.
Yes.
You
so
can, by
looking at-
adoption.
in Ghana, that is not the position of the law. The law requires that the person being adopted should be a child of not more than 16 years and whose biological parents are not Ghanaians.
Okay.
Then, based on the adoptive parents,
Who is Ghanaian?
the child can then acquire the citizenship of Ghana. So
I
we have
think it's
to.
fair because when you're adopted, you extinguish all the rights that the parents, the birth parents, had over the child.
Yeah.
Yes.
So at this time, your now parents, by operation of law, is the one who has adopted you. And if the person is a citizen of Ghana, the person can choose to register you, unless you have another nationality that you prefer to hold on to. And strategically, that person thinks that maybe you can get some additional benefits if you hold on to that citizenship, or they still want to open that door in case you want to go for any of the benefits like we mentioned, maybe to run for
Yeah,
office
yeah.
and social benefits, civic benefits, all of that. But once a Ghanaian adopts a child who originally was non-Ghanaian, that child can easily be registered as a
Yes,
citizen.
that child can be registered as a citizen. And the age is important. So
Yes.
you need to
Be
fall within that
16
age
or
category.
under.
Yes.
Yes.
If you go above 16 and a day, you will not qualify.
Great. So we'll go for another break. When we come back, we go through the steps by way of the process for registration as our law allows.
Okay.
Don't go away. This is still Law Express. went for the break, we already talked about what you qualifications you need to meet or to take before you can even take steps to apply to be registered as a citizen of Ghana. So the first question our viewers would want to know is, where do you even go? Which department, which state agency is responsible for this? And then what do they do once they get there?
Yeah, so essentially when you start the process, you need to go to the Ministry of the Interior, the Migration Unit. That's where you would acquire the form, you pay the required fees. They will take you through the process and what you need to do, what you need to bring, the supporting documents. But I think most importantly, it's best if you get an expert. You get a lawyer to assist you go through the process. But essentially, if you don't have a lawyer, this is what you have to do. You have to get to the Ministry of Interior, tell them that this is what you want to do. You want to acquire citizenship by registration. A key thing is that because it's by marriage, you need to have a valid marriage certificate
or document to prove your marriage.
To prove that, yes. And then there are other requirements such as a police clearance certificate. We need to know that you don't have any criminal record. You haven't committed any crimes.
Do you work or not?
Do you work or not?
Do you pay your social security? Do you have tax clearance?
You have lived in Ghana here legally, and your spouse consents to you registering as a citizen.
So the spouse consent would have to be in writing, where they write a letter in support of your application,
yes,
and confirming that you are indeed their spouse. In the case of a minor, where they apply for the registration for you.
Yes.
And I also believe that since this is a registration process to become a citizen, you'd obviously have to go through a few medical tests to
at the immigration hospital. They go through your background investigation and subsequently submit a report back to the ministry.
Yeah, and you must also have two sponsors. One of them must be a lawyer, and when
at
you
least
submit your at least one of them must be a lawyer. So when you submit your documents, the lawyer's practicing certificate must also be included in the documentation. This is just to show that indeed you are who you claim to be, and then these are people of high repute who are staking their reputation on the line for you.
So you're looking at two people attesting to your character in writing.
Yes.
So where it's a lawyer, they attach their practice certificate or license.
Yes.
Now, it could also be a public officer of some rank.
Yeah.
It could be a notary public, and we all know notaries are still lawyers.
Yes.
Yeah, of some long-term practice.
Yeah.
So once the ministry is convinced that this would have been done at the immigration, right? They bring it back to the Ministry of Interior, saying that this is our report after our investigations and all the background checks on this person. And if the report suggests that you're eligible, they would also compile another report to the presidency for approval.
Yes. So once everything has been submitted, the immigration service would have to vet. They have to vet the documents. They have to vet everything that you've
conduct
stated
the tests.
Yes.
To be sure you can speak a local language. Yes,
they have to take you through everything. So you have to ensure that everything you state in the documents, all the information that you've provided, are accurate and they are factual, and they will stand the rigorous scrutiny that the immigration service will take it through. Because once they finish the verification, they will take it to the Comptroller General, who will then send a recommendation to the President, stating whether to approve or to decline. So you have to make sure that whatever information that you are putting in there is credible and it can stand any form of scrutiny.
I think at this juncture we need to indicate, just because people who are like widows and widowers to spouses who were Ghanaians when they were alive are allowed to also register. Ordinarily, the spouse would have to support the process, right? But here's the case where the person is no longer alive. So you need to show proof that you were married to this person when he was or she was alive, and that the person is dead. So evidence that the person is indeed dead. And I think all those are required.
Yes.
I'm just being a devil's advocate.
All those are required, because if the person is dead, how would we know that the person is dead? You need to provide documents to show that indeed the person is dead, and at the time the person died, the person was a Ghanaian.
Yes.
And then and also at the time you were legally married to that person. So you need to show evidence that indeed all these.
So, playing the devil's advocate, assuming you married this guy, Ghanaian, at the time of his death, he was Ghanaian. Ordinarily, even after his passing, you can register. But from the time he died, and probably 6 months later, you got married to a non-Ghanaian. Can you still rely on the citizenship of your first husband to apply?
I believe, looking at the way the law has been couched, you still can, because the law relates to at the time you married a person, you were eligible. So if at the time you married him, he was Ghanaian and he's dead, and you've moved on with your life to go get married to someone else, the law still opens that leeway for you to still
So
apply.
far as I'm concerned, the door is shut once you married somebody else, because now you have a different husband.
I don't think so, because so long as there's no express prohibition in the law, I think there's still a way.
I haven't seen it happen, but like I said, being the devil's advocate, I would say that, look, you have extinguished that right. You have a new husband, marry into that person's country and apply to register there.
I don't think the framers of the law.
Because what will happen is that this person will now acquire citizenship and confer it on another person that she has just married from somewhere else.
Well, yeah.
And almost automatically the person is granted by virtue of the marriage.
Yes, but that's why there are also certain requirements about the stay, about even the minister satisfying himself before approving it. Such that if you have issues like this, I believe the minister could glean through after the investigation has been done and decide, oh, under this circumstance, I'm not going to grant it to the person. But
going back to your side and agreeing with you at this point, because I am allowed to agree and disagree with you, I think there's a reason why that provision is there. In that, if you have children and the children are minors and they are Ghanaian, for consistency's sake and for your continuous stay in Ghana to be able to support these kids and raise them within this cultural setting, it might be prudent to apply for citizenship because you can't keep going out and coming in to renew visa. So I think those are the instances where mothers or fathers will be pressed to want to take citizenship after their spouse has passed on. We have some questions coming in by way of social media, so let's try to have a look at it.
Thank you.
I met my wife in Ghana when I came to study. I now work here. She's not originally a Ghanaian national, but naturalized over time. Can I register as a Ghanaian based on her status as a citizen?
I would answer this person by saying that your wife was not originally a Ghanaian. Your wife has subsequently acquired the citizenship of Ghana through naturalization. She is a citizen. Her citizenship has not been renounced, neither has it been revoked by the Attorney General through the court. So she is a citizen and she can confer the citizenship to you. You just have to go through the process of registration and she will technically sponsor you and you acquire the citizenship of Ghana. So this person, I believe, should have no problem registering to be a citizen.
And just to add to that, as part of the documentation that you submit when you are doing the registration, you have to attach a copy of the naturalization certificate. The naturalization certificate to your documents to show that your spouse is a Ghanaian, but your spouse acquired the Ghanaian citizenship through naturalization. So it's a very important aspect of it as well. But for you, you said that you came to study. It's important for us to also understand that if you came to study and maybe your study permit has expired and you are living here illegally, then you would have some challenges, because as at the time you are registering, you must have been legally resident in Ghana, because then it starts to raise doubt as to whether you are trying to use this to circumvent the process and probably fast track the acquisition of citizenship or not. Yeah.
So we still shouldn't lose sight of the fact that you must be of good character, you must have been ordinarily resident in Ghana, you must have been here for a period of at least 5 years or whatever shorter period the minister may decide. You should be able to speak an indigenous language. I mean, once you've chosen to marry a Ghanaian, you should as well learn the language. And yeah, you are validly married to this person, and it's not a sham marriage.
Yes.
My parents are both Ghanaians living in the US where I was born. I am currently American. I want to move back to Ghana and stay there. I want to get the full benefits of Ghanaian citizens and not be treated as an immigrant. Can I register as a Ghanaian?
As we stated earlier, fundamentally citizenship is a question of law. And we mentioned jus sanguinis. Both parents being Ghanaians makes you a Ghanaian automatically, unless you decide that you are not going to take up your Ghanaian nationality. It is there for you at any time. So you are a Ghanaian based on the operation of law. The 1992 Constitution is very clear on that, as well as the Citizenship Act.
And he has that sort of citizenship that is by birth, and we cannot even just take away.
Exactly.
Because he traces it from the parents.
Yes. But what I hear is that she's not yet a citizen. She has to take steps to become a citizen. This person was born outside the jurisdiction. The person has lived there his or her whole life and now wants to come home. Now, when you come home, you need to still take steps to activate your Ghanaian citizenship.
You can acquire a Ghanaian passport.
Exactly. It might be automatic to you, but you need to take steps to be able to have things that prove that you're Ghanaian.
Yes.
If not, you can continue to be a U.S. citizen, and anytime you want to come here, you need to pay
for a visa.
And you have limited time, and you can just be moving back and forth. This one is simple. You even are lucky in a way that you can have the best of both worlds.
Yes.
Where you maintain your American citizenship, you add on the Ghanaian citizenship after registration or activation, whichever you call it, and you have a dual citizenship in a way that you can move back and forth. But dual citizenship is another topic for discussion, which we will have subsequently on this platform. So we need to go to the almighty oath of allegiance, without which all of this is null and void. After going through all the steps, if you qualify, the Ministry of Interior approves, and are convinced, the minister is convinced, the president approves, and you are registered, you'll be given a certificate.
Yes.
But above all, there ought to be a ceremony where
you swear the oath of allegiance, and as I stated earlier, it can be done in absentia.
You must be there in person.
You must be there in person, and for the citizenship to be conferred on you. And once it is done, then you can receive your certificate from the Honorable Minister for Interior. Otherwise, they will keep the certificates, and then all the hard work that you've done would come to naught, because you will still not be granted a citizenship if you are not there physically to swear the oath.
Now, in terms of this oath, where it is done doesn't matter, for as long as it's properly administered by a judge.
Yes.
It could be done at the presidency. If you are a high-value person and you've come in and, I mean, government believes that you are bringing something, some benefits to the country by associating with us. Or it could be done at the local assembly. It could be done at the conference room of the Ministry of Interior, or somewhere nearby. It could be at the court. It just has to be done well. You could be doing it alone or in a group.
Yes.
Regardless, that oath is what seals the deal for you and makes you an actual Ghanaian. If you have the certificate and you haven't taken that oath, you still are not a Ghanaian in the true sense of the word. Let's talk about Gazette publications. So now you have your certificate.
So under the laws of Ghana, the minister is required within 3 months after every application to register, to gazette, which means basically make known to the public the list of persons who have applied to register as Ghanaian citizens, even including naturalization. And then that one aside to, within 3 months after the grant of this registration, the minister is supposed to also publish through the gazette to the knowledge of all Ghanaians that this person has now registered to be Ghanaian. That is what the law requires for same to be done, so that everybody now is aware that this person who used to be a citizen of this country is now a citizen of Ghana.
Great. It's important to state that at the point where you commence the proceedings to register as a citizen of Ghana, you're normally told that this process will take about 3 months. You and I know that in practice, that is not what always pertains. Sometimes it could be a function of your own lackadaisical behavior, where you take things at your own pace. They ask you to come over to the immigration hospital to pay and then have your health checkup done, and you're unable to do that. They ask you to come with your criminal clearance. You don't bring it, stuff like that, you know. So the police clearance, I should have said. So these are the things that could delay your process. Even if you have all your act together and you bring all the documents that are required timeously, there's still no guarantee that you have your ceremony and your oath administered 3 months down the line.
No, because you can't rush the process. You have to allow the process to evolve naturally. And then let's say your documents are submitted to the presidency. You can't go and say that you expect it to be done.
Insist.
No. You can't do that. You can't rush the president's timelines. So it will be done when it will be done. But what is important is that you have to ensure that you meet all the criteria and everything checks out.
So once you meet all the criteria and everything checks out, you just wait and say it is what it is.
Yes, exactly.
On this note, I think it's a great point to end this conversation,
Well,
unless you have some last words.
I will also add by saying that since citizenship by registration is not like citizen by birth, which may be automatic, it can be taken away from you. So if, even after acquiring the citizenship through registration, either by being married to a Ghanaian or being a child coming from such a route, you may lose it if you engage in acts that are inimical to the state, or it is found out that subsequently after you gained your citizenship by registration, it appeared that you will use fraudulent means or misrepresentation to convince the minister to give this registration to you. It could be taken away from you by the Attorney General applying to the courts and having your citizenship revoked. So it is important that anybody applying to be a citizen by registration takes their time, provide the correct and truthful details, so that subsequently, after you've gone through all these hurdles and acquired the citizenship, the Attorney General will not one day have grounds to go to court, have the citizenship revoked, and you bundled out of the country. So that's a little bit of advice I'll add to it.
Great. So we've come to the end of the show, and thank you, gentlemen, for joining the show. My name is Noella Seju, and today with me as co-panelists have been Kofi Owusu Ampao and Hanan Inche Asaku. Till same time next week, this was Law Express. Goodbye.